good afternoon, good evening. How we doing today? Welcome back, everyone. What's going on, my friends? How are you this Thursday? Big thank you to Cameron Stapleton coming in and joining the Pro Muppet before we were even live. What an incredible contribution that is. Thank you. But yes, welcome. I want to speak about quite a few things today. I do want to debate a little bit the two midfielders because we've got a lot of links. A lot of the names that we've been talking about have come to the forefront, been mentioned by others, and presumably a part of the list that we are discussing. It's funny how that goes. But I have my doubts. I have some doubts on who the right picks are. I'm starting to question everything. Not really, but I am starting to question some things. I'm starting to wonder what is the right actual pick for the two midfielders that we should be bringing in this year, because maybe it's not quite so simple. And when I say this year, I mean between January and summer. We'll take a look ahead to City, have some early thoughts on a potential lineup and things like that, and see where we go from there. So that's what I want to mostly cover today. I'm sure we will find some other things to talk about. Guys, it's been a long international break. I know I've said this in the last few videos as well, but holy crap, this morning I was thinking about it and I was like, guys, we need club football to come back. We need some more to talk about. There's only so much I can think moving ahead and just be like, okay, let's see something go on. I was really enjoying getting into looking at, evaluating, and discussing the way United play and finding myself in that arc of things. And I need United to come back. Good or bad, win or lose, I need United to come back. We need something to talk about. This break feels like forever. It feels like the season hasn't even started. It feels like all excitement and momentum is lost. These international breaks are crazy. I think they should cancel them. I think that the international breaks should potentially come before the season starts. Why not? Why not just run the international break friendly should be gone entirely. It's a joke. Like, you can have one once in a while, but just get rid of the international break. Take it away. Put it before the season starts. Some random time in the middle of summer or something. No, but not even that. That doesn't even work. It's just terrible. It's just terrible. And the worst part is next summer, we're going to have a World Cup, and then we're immediately going to follow the World Cup with a long international break. Like, why? Why now? Why do we do this? Why does this have to happen? At least make it fewer games and it's so annoying, and whatever. I mean, there are World Cup qualifiers. Some of them are going to be pretty meaningful, but I don't know. It is what it is, man. It is what it is. I don't know of anybody who really loves the international breaks these days, but I'm sure there are people who really enjoy watching international football. It is what it is. So either way, we're back. Yes, please, as you come in, do drop a like on the stream. You know how much I appreciate it, and how much it helps me. There we go. Stuck on my words a little bit today. The international breaks the same time. Well, that's the thing. It should be the same time as others. And the qualifying is so long, the bigger nations should be seeded better. Smaller nations should play themselves. Yes, I would tend to agree. It should be a little more historical, and I don't know. I understand that representing your country is a proud moment. I just think the scheduling is crazy. I just think the scheduling is wacky. Like, why can't we figure out how? You know what the truth of the matter is? Oh, no, maybe I'm not right on this. I don't know. They just should figure out how to schedule it better. Honestly, if you went with like a Sunday game, a Thursday international game, and back to Wednesday for a regular club game, it wouldn't be so bad, and then back to a normal schedule. And you did that 4 times a year just to get a game in there. The problem is how many games and things like that. And I get it too, but there's no real good answer here when you're trying to have all these tournaments and things, but it just feels as though there's too many qualifiers, too many friendlies, and we could maybe cut them down by at least 30% and eliminate at least one of these things, Or a full month of November, all of July would be pretty crazy. That would be pretty crazy. It feels sometimes like the only answer is to shorten summer, which I wouldn't be 100% opposed to. What if you made a lot of qualifiers happen in June? Season finishes, league's done. You run off in June, do all the qualifiers. Boom, you have a couple week holiday into mid-July. Boom, mid-July to August to mid-August is the summer, and then bam, you're back into football, and you play just a month of international games in June. Why not? Why not do something like that, and then that's your qualifiers for the next stage of the tournaments or things like that. I mean, the reality here is that careers are short. A few weeks off, winter break, little summer break. They don't need that many holidays. These guys make a lot of money. They don't need that many holidays. And they're not all internationals either. Other people would get just the same amount of time. So I don't know. Something like that would, to me, make a lot more sense. But who am I? Who am I to say that is the right thing? So let's get into it. Let's discuss some things, some stuff, and some things today. Let's start with talking about the midfield. That's what I want to talk about first. Obviously, the main names that we've seen being discussed time and time again, the names that we know, there's Carlos Baleba, there's Adam Wharton, there's Elliot Anderson, there's Ederson, there's Buwadi, and now I'm forgetting somebody. I feel Yeoman, that was the other name. My question is, and what I'm trying to figure out here, and I think is worth discussing, there's information and opinion, okay? And I want to split some hairs on this a little bit. Hold on. I want to look at that for a second and say, who should we get? Who are we most likely to get? When you look at it, there's really two positions in the midfield that we run with, right? One of them is, of course, the deep, the shield, the six, all of that. And the second one is, of course, more like a creative box-to-box all-rounder, and they're supposed to get in the box, crash the box, score some goals, but help in a lot of different ways. And they certainly have different traits. You know what I mean? They certainly have different traits in terms of what you want out of each of them. And so my question for you is, when I look at this, like, what are the qualities? What are the qualities? Oh, right, I did forget. Onana officially confirmed, gone on loan. So long and goodbye. So long and goodbye. And good luck. What are the qualities of the six? Because I think when you start to break down the qualities of a six, you start to question a little bit who is the right choice for that. So here's my questions for you guys. Right. I hear you. What is the quality of a six in this midfield? What are the qualities you want from that deeper midfielder in this system? When I look at it in general, what I see is you want somebody who sits, who's good on the ball, carrying, and who has a high completed level of completed passes. Athletic, good ground coverage, not necessarily pressing way up in front of the back line, gets around really well, and keeps the ball. Keeps the ball is important in this position, I must say, because the biggest problems that we have on occasion are when we get too wasteful in that position. I think that when I look at Manuel Ugarte, for example, the biggest problem that Some people have a problem with him for one thing. I think the more valid criticism of Ugarte is that he's made a lot of mistakes at times on the ball, getting caught out deep, losing it from a position you don't want to lose it in. Would you think that's fair? There's people who have a big problem with Ugarte because of not progressive passing. I've never had an issue with that. But where I can see a problem is that when he loses the ball deep, and he has a high percentage of retaining it, but he makes mistakes. Would that be fair? Would I think most people agree with that? It's more the mistakes, if putting aside whether you think he should be a progressive passer or not, it's those mistakes deep. It's those mistakes deep that are causing those kinds of issues, I think. I could be wrong about that, but that would be my main kind of take on what his biggest flaws are as a deep midfielder in a system, because he does get around. He does actually make a lot of tackles. But yeah, making mistakes seems to be a bit of the issue there. When I take someone like Casemiro, it's sort of the same thing. When he gets it, there's two things. He launches it and far too easily launches the ball at times when he shouldn't. Recently this season, he's actually almost been too conservative at times. And then in addition, he just doesn't get around the pitch very well. So doesn't fit in that regard, but kind of sits a little bit. But I think that, his passing range is one of the reasons that he's playing, and kind of instinct defensively is important as well. So we would say good on the ball, athletic, and gets around and makes a lot of kinds of tackles and things like that. That's where I don't necessarily see Adam Wharton. But let's look at some numbers. And I've been questioning this because I've been going back and forth and thinking, who is the right player? If I were to look at it purely from let's go like, excuse me, sorry guys. If I were to look at it purely from possessions won and defensive duels won percentage, you win the ball a lot, you don't lose it, and you win a high number of your duels, then the right answer, a high pass percentage completion rate, then a player we really should be looking at is Andre at Wolves. I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think Andre at Wolves would be one of the biggest people that I would say, if we want a Premier League player, then Andre would be probably better for this than a lot of the guys we've got. And I think this is a decent measure because I look at these players and think, yeah, that guy would be perfect. Yeah, Caicedo would be perfect. All of that. That's kind of what I think. Those are the guys that I think in that position. So anyway, yeah, when I look then at like Baleba, I would say my biggest, he's a high volume, decently good tackler with a good pass percentage and all of that. But I'm not so sure, is he the right sitter? I don't know. He probably is. It's hard to sometimes translate it from one position to another on different teams and leagues and all of that. But I look at it, obviously you're not going to know everything by the stats. But if I were to take just purely based on stats, who United should go for, it would probably be more like Andre at Wolves. Now, Baleba has a ton of those qualities where, he can do a lot of these things well. I think needs to up his... now, I'm not saying a sitter because they need to get around a lot. So it is about winning a lot of duels as well. What happens if I go to duels 1 per 90? So again, you kind of look and say, Elliot Anderson, this is where you start to say, he might be really good in this position. He gets around a lot, wins a decent percentage. It's not that crazy. It's not that crazy in terms of a defensive thing, So, all right, defensively, Baleba might be the weakest defensively of the options in terms of just how much volume of tackling. João Gomez would be a good one. Andre would be a good one. I mean, João Gomez and Andre might be a good partnership in general if you were to add them in there. Yarmouk at Brentford. Like, it's interesting. It's interesting in that respect. If you look at Baleba, he might be better suited to getting around the pitch, but I could be wrong there. That's kind of where I've gone back and forth a little bit. If I want somebody who's winning a lot of duels and winning them at a high percentage, I probably would prefer somebody like Elliot Anderson. You know what I mean? And again, you got to watch the players as well, because there's things to look at, and there's things that don't show up, like Ugarte. I was just talking about in terms of mistakes, things like that go on. Sometimes there's just mistakes and things like that need to be cut out, I would say. Those are some of the things. But then also, I would say Kamara at Villa does actually fit it almost perfectly what I'd want from that position. So I feel like we're in the right track here. Now, if we wanted to add something else into this, I would say, all right, that's a bit of the off ball. What about on ball? What about like offensive duels 1%? Let's see. Let's look at being kind of tidy on the ball here. Hold on. What other stats could we pick here for offensive? Not necessarily looking at like, am I looking at the wrong spot? What am I looking for here? The on-ball quality is more important. It could be, because we expect to be on the ball quite a lot. Yeah, it could be. What would I want here? I'm thinking, I don't know. Offensive duels 1% is big. Not progressive actions here. Let's say dribble success rate, okay? If you go to the dribble success rate aspect, because I don't think that progression is the right stat. I don't think that it is. I'm looking at, not progression. They're not expected to progress the ball. They're not expected to carry it up the pitch. Offensive duels 1, dribble success rate. This would be guys who are really, really good on the ball in their positions. And again, I think we're finding the right names. There's Ugo Chukwu again, which kind of shows up there. Mateus Fernandes at Southampton. I think we're again on the right list. And one of the reasons I think this is the right idea is that we're seeing Gravenberch a lot. And Gravenberch would be probably one of the best players we could get in there. And we're also seeing Andre. Now, Onana, I think, is one of the best players on the ball. But I think in a 2, you certainly don't want him as the deeper one, because his defensive work is a bit shoddy in that respect. So I go back and forth on this. And say who would be the right pick. Again, I'm kind of looking at someone like Kamara and Andre as potentially, he did go to West Ham now, as potentially the best options, for that kind of position if you wanted an ideal player. Because again, anything that shows me Caicedo and Gravenberch, I'm thinking that's probably the right guy. I also did really like Ugo Chukwu. What did you guys think of him when he played against Burnley? Because I've been talking about him for the summer. I hoped that United would take another look at him and see, because I feel as though Ugo Chukwu would basically be great in that midfield if you stuck him next to Bruno. If you stuck him next to Bruno, I think Ugo Chukwu would fit in our midfield really well. So that's interesting, but I quite like them. He is a raw player, but he's young and he's cheap, and he would have been affordable. And I feel like why wouldn't we pick up a young player like that to add to our options? You know what I mean? And he's very physical. He's very athletic. I would have really liked him. It's kind of disappointing that we didn't do something like that. So I think I like, so I'm looking at it and thinking, there are some downsides to these guys, and I'm wondering, are we being fooled a little bit? I think Baleba, you watch him on the eye test and he looks a lot better than that, even though technically the first start the season he's been really bad. Elliot Anderson, I'll tell you where I struggle with it. Oh, I wanted to add one more stat in here that I think is really important for this deep position. There's like one more thing we haven't looked at, and it's the aerial duels percentage. I want a big number there. That's where you get a little bit concerned with Andre, but again, Kamara looks really good. But once again, you can see Caicedo, Gravenberch, you know. Adam Wharton might be a better sitter, but he doesn't get around as much. Yeah, I don't know. I'm honestly so torn. I'm so torn about who's the right player for these positions. You know what I mean? And if you go to the Portuguese league, you'll find Yeoman probably shows up well on a lot of the measurements we were looking at. Hold on, let me see if I can find it. What was the previous ones I did? Defensive duels 1 per 90, and like, I don't know what the hell the other stat was that I did, to be honest. I don't know where I started with this. I don't actually remember. I was probably on like defensive duels 1 percentage, like a high percentage of duels and a decent number. How does Hillman look? Hillman's pretty good in this measure. Not the highest, but he has a very high rate of winning his duels. That's, I think, an important part of this. So I'm really not sure. I can see why they would have considered Yeoman, because he's a very good player in that respect. Now, if you take this to the top 5 leagues and look at the under 25s, and show all the names, well, I think we're looking at the right names here, because Buwadi and João Neves represent, to me, 2 of the best possible options to bring in. You know what I'm saying? So I think we're on the right track for the right style of player, because if you could build a player in a lab and then add a few inches onto his height for this, it would be João Neves, 100%. Without a doubt, it would be João Neves with how he's performing at PSG. I still think in the Premier League, some of the height things may matter a little bit more if it was every week, but I don't know. But Buwadi is a young player that I feel United have to be all over. I think they are aware of him, but if we want to get maybe one of the future best midfielders around, Buwadi is a name to keep, is definitely one to keep an eye on. The other name that we had been linked to at one point was Frendrup at Genoa, who also looks good in this respect. But it's intriguing. It's interesting. I'm a little confused about who would be the best option, because I still feel a lot of the names might be better as the 8. Because if I were to look at the 8, then I'm talking about midfielders where I'm saying, what do I want out of my midfielders? I want them to be, what do you want out of the 8? That's a question. Text Vivel already. Well, I'm sure they're aware of it. That's the thing. They are aware of it. Fofana. Oh, you mean the winger? Yeah. Sorry. I think there's something in that one, but yeah, but Buwadi would be a really, really interesting one to look at. I think he would be one of the most intriguing players if we were to look at his numbers here. This is a key. And look at his stats. You know, he's young, but like, I mean, it's funny because he's got like no offensive stats. This is like he's like what year am I? Oh, it's because it's this season so far. I didn't realize it had added this season. That's pretty funny. Even still, you know, like these are for me the 3 areas that I would prioritize for the Premier League, for the 6 that we want, right? Duels percentage, possessions won, and carrying. I don't really care about the progressive passes and things like that. And so I think Buwadi represents, I mean, he's only 17. I think he represents one of the best options for a position like that. When you throw someone in like Baleba, here, let's look at this season for Baleba. You can see he's kind of doing the duels one, but not a lot of other stuff is working particularly well this season for him. But he's still a very good, strong dueler. as well. Again, you're looking at like 3 games when you look at kind of those numbers, which is funny because look, it's really early in the season. And then if you go to Elliot Anderson, what are you getting? Elliot Anderson is kind of the everything guy. So I look at Elliot Anderson from what I can see from him. Yeah, looking at stats after 3 games is crazy. It is crazy. Don't get me wrong. It's really funny to look at player stats after 3 games. But if I were to look at Elliot Anderson, I think he's the 8. I think he looks good as the 8. He's a guy who you can see. This is kind of how I see it. If I compare them, for just a second here, let me see what could make it a little bit easier. If I compare them all last year, I would say that, Elliot Anderson would probably make more sense as an 8 because he does a lot of the other stuff too. He does a lot of the attacking stuff that you want to see also. Now Baleba can too, mind you. He can get forward a bit more and all that. But I think that's where you would look at Elliot Anderson is as a box to box midfielder. What do you think about that? Do you think that the assessment I have of him is right? Because that's kind of where I was putting him in, and I was saying like I kind of see Wharton and Yeoman as kind of those sitters, and I see Anderson and Buwadi, Wharton, Yeoman as kind of sitters. You know what I mean? And then I see guys like Anderson, Ederson, and as the 8s, and then I see like your Baleba as in the middle. You know what I mean? I see him as in the middle. Like that's kind of how I have them profiled in terms of how they would fit into our system. What do you think about that? I mean, do you think I'm crazy? Do you think that I have this at least somewhat read right? And what do you think about it? I want to watch a lot of more of these players this season with my eyes and see how they do. But that's kind of how I see it. You have like your Buwadi, Wharton, Yeoman are kind of like deep sitting, good duelers, not super high volume all the time, but very efficient. And then you've got and good on the ball. And then you've got your Anderson, Ederson, who are kind of your all-rounder box-to-box type of players. And then you've got your Baleba, who on the eye test, to me, can do it whichever we want from him. Whatever we want from him, he can do it. That would be the way that I look at it. I think I have it right. I think that's how I would list these guys out. I'll put Anderson. I would put the Sons, Anderson and Ederson in the 8 category. Wharton, Yeoman, and Buwadi in the 6 category. And then Baleba can do whatever we want him to do. So you could buy a 6 or you could buy an 8 with Baleba, in my opinion. Because I look at it like, let's say you were to play Ugarte Maynu in the future. Who would you want? You'd want one of the 6s or Baleba, right? You probably wouldn't play a Ugarte Maynu, Elliot Anderson midfield. Or a Ugarte Maynu, Ederson midfield. Probably not. I would suggest you would want to play in this system anyway. I mean, maybe it would be different, but that's kind of how I see it. I'd like to see but you could also play like a Wharton Baleba. You could also play like Wharton and Baleba together. My concern with Adam Wharton is I worry about his athleticism. I think that but I will say what the positive of a Wharton Baleba midfield is you could run Wharton and Kabi, Wharton and Baleba and Kabi. You'd have 3 players there that you could pretty much just mix in and match and it would work constantly. You know what I mean? But what would be let me end this poll and poll you guys because I'm quite curious. What would be like a preferred, let me give you a few midfield pairings and you tell me what you would like. Because I'm quite, and Wharton's injuries are definitely a little worrisome to me. Let's say that the first option, because Baleba is our top target, is Baleba Kabi. But what if Kabi doesn't stay? I mean, let's just broach that topic really quick. What if Kabi decides he doesn't want to be here anymore? Does Baleba stay as the 6 and we go get an 8? Or does Baleba become the 8 and we go get a 6? That is an unknown. That's an unknown question. Let's see. Wharton plus Baleba. Let's just throw some interesting options in here. But I'm going to assume that Baleba is in all of our plans because he is, right? I'm going to assume that he's in all of our plans. Then what are we looking at here as potential? I'll just pull some of these, and I'm just curious as to, like, I just want to get a read on what you guys are thinking if I were to give you these options, for example. One option where Baleba's an 8, one where he's a 6, a bunch where he's a 6. Can we get 2 midfielders that could play 6 and 8 by 2 multifunctional players? Probably, Ridwan. And that's kind of why I like the idea of like Baleba and Anderson, is I feel like you'd have a ton of flexibility there. A lot more flexibility there. Carrick more aggressive than Wharton. I agree. I think I really rate Adam Wharton, but I do think there's just something about his athleticism that doesn't work for me. And I think just something about it doesn't work for me, and I don't know why. Maynu and Kamara would be good. Yeah, I like Kamara, but we don't have any current links to him. You think Kabi could be molded into a 6? He does have quality that would fit the 6. Because his in possession traits presently, Kabi is a strange player. Kabi is a strange player at the moment, and I think we kind of have to figure that out. We kind of have to figure that out with Kabi, because he's a bit of a strange player, and I think the reason he's a bit of a strange player is that he is a third man in a 3. Like, I don't think he has the passing for the 8 to be as creative potentially as you might want at times, but I think he could develop it. But he does have really good box running, the way that he gets in the box, darts in between the right positions, finds the spots, finishes his chances. He's got those really well. He's definitely, to me, not a 10. He's more like, he's an 8. He lacks a few of the passing qualities you want from a 10. He's good in where, like, Kabi is really good in possession in the final third, but not passing, but more like picking up the ball, late running, things like that. I think he can score goals and do that really well. He's also really good at picking the ball off the back line, evading the press, and passing. Where he's lacking at the moment is in, I think, the middle of the pitch. Not because he doesn't have quality, because he has quality, but he doesn't have the passing range of Bruno or Casemiro at all. He doesn't even have I'm not going to say what I was about to say. He doesn't have the passing range of Ugarte as a long passer. He's actually the worst of them at long passes. Takes too long to get it off. I'm just saying that. But he's really good at carrying the ball in small spaces, but he's not necessarily that good at carrying the ball in big spaces through the middle thirds when it's open. So you kind of need him to, like, pick the ball up off the back line if you were to use him. You almost play him as a 6. You almost play him as a 6 in this, because he has good defensive discipline. He has good tackling. He is a good tackler. He is a good duel winner. He can evade the press. He can pick the ball up off the back line and move around. And then he could kind of make those late runs even as a 6 in this system. Where you'd want him to develop is his where you want him to develop is probably his long passing. That's what I would say for the most part. And then you don't, because if as a 6 you don't want him getting forward so much, you need to be able to pass it a bit longer to do that. But his ground, athleticism and Athleticism and such is certainly a factor. Athleticism is certainly a factor in that. Athleticism and long passing. So if he can round out those aspects of his games, he could be a 6. He could. If he wants to be in the 8, I think it's mostly endurance. I think you could even get by the passing. He's not really even a 6.5. He's just like, you know what it is the problem is that he's really good in small spaces. And when you take a player who's really good in small spaces, what is the small space player? Like, where's your small space player? You know what I mean? Like what? Because every position has small space attributes and big space attributes. But we do play a team. We do. I think the biggest thing is he needs the long pass in his game. I've been thinking about it, and that's what I think. Because I think that, like, if I watch Bruno these days, yeah, there's the work rate and the endurance and all of that, but it's just the running and the long passing. He's got to be able to switch the play quicker. He's got to be able to switch the play quicker, and he's got to be able to cover more ground. And then you could put him into most positions, and he could probably work. So there's time to develop into that. Bentancur and Sarr, the problem is they're both having crazy, crazy engines. Similar-ish players, crazy engines. Put Kobe into the Barcelona team to be a superstar? No, because at the moment he's a worse Frankie de Jong because he's younger. At the moment he's a worse Frankie de Jong because he's younger. He would have Frankie de Jong is a similar-ish profile of player who he's had that problem too, frankly, even at Barcelona. What position is Frankie de Jong fit in? Aside from the injuries, you actually have that issue with Frankie de Jong at the moment. You've had that for years, to be honest. Like, what he struggled to figure it out at Barcelona, partially because of that issue. What position is Frankie de Jong? He doesn't quite have the engine for a 6, even though he's a good tackler, but not as good, you know. He can carry the ball really well. He can evade pressure. He can dribble. He can do all of that, but he's not an amazing passer. There's some limit. It's a similar-ish problem. Like, if we were to sign Frankie de Jong today, I would have to put him as a 6. Where would you put de Jong? Let me just ask you a question. If we signed Frankie de Jong, let's forget about Kobe. If we signed Frankie de Jong right now, where would you play him? Because I had this issue when we were talking about signing Frankie de Jong under Ten Hag, and we had a 3-man midfield. I said, wait, where are you playing him? Are you putting him as the lone 6? Because no way. He wouldn't make it as a lone 6 in the Premier League. He wouldn't. In this 2-man, there's a bit more coverage. You probably put him as the 8 in this system today. That's probably where I would put him. So, but would you play him over Bruno Fernandes? I don't know. You would be lacking some of the passing. A lot of you would probably play him. But would he play? Probably not. Because you would think, we've got better options. Bench. Yeah, bench. But I don't know where the hell Frankie de Jong was going to play under Ten Hag. But I have this, it's the same debate I go back and forth on when it comes to Cunha Mount. Now, with the discussion at hand.
Can you and the United Stand collab?
Probably not, Matthew. But I have the same problem at the moment, which is that if I take Cunha Mount, I go, probably I want to play him with Baleba, because Baleba and de Jong would be fantastic. Baleba and de Jong would be great, would be really, really good. Yeah, I am answering my own questions. I don't know, man. Thank you for the donation. I don't mind if anybody has all their own interests and things like that, but yeah, the likelihood of a collaboration is very low. But yeah, I don't know. Now at this vote at hand, you guys have said Baleba and Kabi. Well, yeah, that's kind of how I look at it. That would be your ideal midfield pairing, Baleba and Kabi. Baleba, if I were to get De Jong, I would probably do the same thing. Baleba and De Jong, Baleba and Kabi. That makes sense to me. That's the best I can see it. But I guess my question there is what I think you're still lacking. What does concern me a little bit. What does concern me a little bit is the long passing. That's it. That's about the only thing that genuinely concerns me is the long passing. Are we, and you might say it doesn't matter, it's not important, it doesn't mean anything, we don't need to have long passing. I think we do. I think we need long passing so badly because I think, not just because it's cool to have, but because it is such an important part of modern football. The direction that football is going, you've got to be able to hit those long balls. You have to be able to. You have to be able to send players in transition. You have to be able to quickly release them. When I showed that in my tactical videos, and look, and that might be true for Amram, but the fact of the matter is that might be true for the next manager if Amram doesn't work out too. I think people assume it's going to be totally different. Like, there's the switch of play and long passing. I'm just saying the ability to do it quickly would be great. The perfect player for the number 8 at Manchester United is Paul Pogba. The perfect player. I mean, Paul Pogba is probably the perfect 8 in every team in the history of football, to be quite honest. But he is. He is. He is. You need long passing. I don't need progressive passing, Sneaks. I need long passing. I need them to get the ball quickly out wide. That is what I've said from day one. What I want from my midfielders, not progressive passing, because when people look for a midfielder, they're thinking, I want progressive passing. I want my midfielder shooting the ball forward into the 10s. No, the 10 needs to drop. What you want is to pick up and send it wide, out to the wingbacks, has always been what I've said the midfield is supposed to do. Get it long and sideways. Paul Pogba would be perfect because he can dribble, he can carry. He was actually a little underrated defensively. If you give him a shield and then you let him go long, he could hit that long pass like nobody else on earth. Pogba's perfect. Who's Pogba? Who's Pogba? Like, who's the Pogba in this world? You know what I mean? Like, who's the closest thing to that for the 8? Because if you were to tell me, hey, you could have Conte and Pogba, sure, I would take it. If you could give me, who was the other guy? Not Conte, actually. Who was the other French midfielder? Matuidi and Pogba in this midfield. That's it. That's my midfield for the two. That the balance of the two of them would be my midfield for the two. Matuidi and Pogba, if I'm looking back at that time period in France. Matuidi and Pogba would be my pick for the two midfielders that you'd want to have. I think that would be great. If I look at like good passers who also have the long ball in there, pass completion and long pass accuracy, we go back to Andre again. And I start to think, should we get Andre? But let's say, again, I'm looking at the right players here. But here Elliot Anderson shines. That's why I think Elliot Anderson would make for a good 8. There's a lot of things Elliot Anderson does well as an 8. I think Elliot Anderson might be the right guy for the 8. If it's not Cunha Mount, mind you. I think he might be the right guy for the 8. Oh, let's look at last year. That was actually based on this tiny little sample size of this year. So let's redo it. But that goes to show, you know, long pass accuracy, Premier League, under 25s, and yeah, I'm doing a wage cap. There's Andre, there's Caicedo. See, I think Amadou Onana makes for a really good 8 as well. Andre's on every single fucking stat, man. Well, who is this guy? Can we just get Andre? See, this year, Elliot Anderson's improving already, but we'll see. He was a little lower last year. See, Kobbie Mainoo's okay at it, right in the middle. I don't know why I can't see Bruno on here. He must be classified as a... Oh, you know why? Because I did the under 25s. Go under 35s. Bruno. So high on the long balls percentage, low on general passing. So you'd have to go like Declan Rice. Yup. Declan Rice would make for one of the perfect 8s in the system too. If we look at some older players, we might get a better idea of who we're looking at here. Yeah, some of them are 6s. Baleba does show up well here as well. Yep. Baleba does show up really well here. So, yeah, I mean, again, he might be a better 8 than a 6. I'm not positive. I'm not convinced on it. Show Ugarte, he's right there. Someone said you can't say he's better long passing than Kobbie. He does. I mean, he's 65% success rate versus 50. It's not even close. Like, he does have a lot of the traits for the 6s. And I have a feeling this is why he wasn't sold this summer, is he statistically, Manuel Ugarte should fit into the 6 extremely well. He does all the things you want from a 6. He just has to stop making mistakes. That's it for me. That's how I see it. Like, statistically, he just has to stop making mistakes because he's made a lot of bad errors. But otherwise, everything else he does is technically exactly what is wanted out of this position. But hey, it is what it is, man. I'm not going to spend any more time on it. Andre from Wolves, yeah. Yeah. So it's interesting. It's interesting. It is interesting. Well, that's a percentage stat. It doesn't matter when a player was injured or not. Those are, I'm looking at per stats, not total.
Would you
stats.
consider Cesar Ren for the 6?
Yeah, I did see him for quite a few stats, KF, and he's one I want to keep an eye on as well. I just, if we had any links, it would be good. Maynu and Ugarte, in theory, should work. Yeah, it should look a lot like Maynu and Baleba, but for whatever reason, like, here's what happens, I think, because when you look at it in theory, Maynu and Ugarte should work. Bruno and Ugarte should work. We haven't really tried it, but it should. But we have 2 problems. When Ugarte plays, he's made some mistakes. That doesn't help. When Maynu plays, the ball moves too slow. We don't get the ball out wide quick enough. And I think that his work rate coming back doesn't support as much. And so I think that those issues kind of compound. The ball moves too slow. It doesn't get out quick enough. And then you're asking Ugarte maybe to do too much. And then he starts to make mistakes because he's under more pressure. Interestingly, Ugarte plays really well when he plays with Casemiro specifically. I think, of course, because he has a little bit more help deep. And so I think you get these like compounding problems when they play together where there's just too many flaws in both of their games at this point in time, where I feel like both need to get a chance with another player. Like, can we see Casemiro and Kobbie for a game? Maybe we will against Man City. Can we see Casemiro and Kobbie for a minute? So we see Kobbie with more of a sitter behind him. Can we see Bruno with Ugarte? So we can see one without the other, mixed with players who maybe cover up their flaws a little better until they get better. But in theory, it should work. It should work in theory the same way it did work against Liverpool last year, where they had really good games and together they worked. Because again, yes, in theory, you would get exactly what you want from them both, but they both have flaws at the moment that don't really help each other. That's I think the concern. If you look at Baleba and Kabi, I'll give you one of the things I really don't like about when we played Maynu and Ugarte that I think is a tactical issue. It shouldn't be Maynu. It shouldn't be Ugarte picking it up from deep. It should be Maynu picking it up from deep when they play together. We're asking them to do kind of silly things, but this is a little bit of the issue. So I don't know. There's flaws, but yeah, in terms of the names, that's the way I see it. I think Elliot Anderson would make for the best 8. If we were to replace Kabi Maynu, or if Bruno were to go and we were to want to get another 8, and here's the thing. Here's why the whole Kabi Maynu thing to me is a bit silly. If Bruno leaves, we still have to buy another 8. Because Casemiro is leaving too. So you're still going to have to compete, Kabi. Because that's football. We can't have one player for a position. You're going to have to compete. Because if Bruno leaves, I think we would go for... imagine Bruno gets sold, 80 million next summer, and Casemiro leaves. We've got loads of cash, loads of money. What are we going to do? We're going to go buy 2 midfielders. It's a possibility. It's a serious possibility. You're going to be competing with someone like Elliot Anderson or Ederson at the 8, and I think Anderson would be the best play there. And at the 6, you're going to be competing with someone like, you're going to be talking about Baleba, probably. So I look at that and I go, you're still going to be competing. No matter what happens, you're going to be competing. You're going to compete with Bruno this year, and you're going to compete with someone else next year. Either way. It's not going to change. Is there a chance to sell Ugarte next summer? Yeah, look, every player, 2 seasons. He's got to have a good season. Otherwise, he'll be on the chopping block. He wasn't for sale this summer, though, because they do think he can turn it around, but he's got to have a good season. Or he could be sold. Yeah, and in that case, maybe we would need 3 midfielders, or maybe we get somebody to step up from youth to fill one of the spots. But look, no matter what, next summer, next year, you're going to have to compete. No matter what. That's all. It's just a team that's going to have, it's just a team that's going to have competition in these positions, no matter what. We're going to have to. So I would, my hope for Kabi is that he fights and improves the thing. I don't understand the Kabi is in a 3-man midfield thing. A player shouldn't be only capable of playing one type of way. Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree on that. I mean, I look at Ahmad right now, he's playing at wing back. I look at Dorgu, who's playing at wing back. They're not necessarily natural positions. I mean, hold on for a minute. Did Conte not play in a 3-man midfield before going to that Chelsea team, or am I mistaken? You know what I mean? Aren't most players capable? And then I look at the old 4-4-2 the old 4-4-2 that Sir Alex used to play, and it was the same kind of 2-man midfield. That's why he had such hard workers in his team, because you just have to have that. I feel like the 3-man midfield is a little bit of an excuse to get away with not doing the work or something like that. It's sort of a suggestion, if someone can only play in a 3-man midfield, then it's kind of a problem on them more than anything else, because what you're really saying is they're only capable of playing one way. You know what I mean? Especially, it's just what is a 3-man midfield versus a 2-man midfield? Is a 4-2-3-1 a 2-man or a 3-man? I mean, technically it's a 3-man, but in practice, the 2 is the same as the other 2. Well, if we played a 4-2-3-1 tomorrow, Kabi would still be in a 2-man midfield. In fact, you'd have even more defensive responsibilities. And so I look at that and I go, well, then it's not really the issue, is it? Because You're not a 10. Like, you have to nail a position down in there. He's closest to an 8. I think he makes not the deepest, but an 8. And that position exists in this team. When I watch Bruno play, Bruno's not getting that close to the box anymore. I mean, Bruno's doing a lot of defensive work, but he's not getting like super far up the pitch either. You know what I mean? He's like, most games he's still deep, and he's got runners and such and all of those players in front of him. He's got 5 guys in front of him. So it's closest to an 8. United can do what Chelsea do and invert a fullback to the midfield. We kind of do it anyway to a degree, but not with I mean, we can, but it's sort of unnecessary. But yeah, I mean, the idea, I think Kobe can play in that too, and I think he can play it really well in that too. But I think he just has to develop certain aspects of his game for any position, frankly. I think any position. Like, if you were to take a 4-2-3-1, I would still say Pogba's the perfect 8 in a 4-2-3-1 because they have the ability, the passing range, the things like that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't think it really has much to do with the position. I really don't. Let's take a look. Let's take a look at City, and that can kind of bring us to this discussion, kind of what I think. Let's assume for a moment, that we're not like Cunha and Mount aren't fit enough to start. Okay, let's assume for a moment. Then this is what I'm going for in this game. Yeah, a two-man midfield we've been doing for fucking ages. And I really don't think the system has players playing out of position. In fact, it suits, like, let me tell you, like, here's the funny part, right? You switch to a 4-3-3, guess who's out of position? Cunha. Because he's going to be narrow, and he's going to play the exact same way he plays now. You know, it's like, it's all, you're always going to have flexibility because wingers don't particularly exist that much anymore. And it's like, I don't know. I don't know what happens. Then Ahmad, his position, it's now on the bench. I'm sure he'd prefer being on the pitch. You know what I mean? But yeah, I mean, Dallo, he had a little injury. I also really don't trust him defensively. You know what I'd like to see in this game? Luke Shaw has been doing really well though, but I needed to get Maguire on to deal with this. Why do people say Šeško won't start? What's the reason? What is this new thing? What is this new thing we're doing? Luke Shaw's been really good though. It'll be Shaw. Cunha left wing would be fine, sure, but he would play narrow. He would play the same position he plays in now. He's not going to sit on the touchline. He's not that type of winger anyway. You know, Garnacho was. So we got rid of the wrong person if we were going to go back that direction. I wanted to get De Ligt. I don't want to take De Ligt off, but I really did want to get Maguire on because he's always done really, really well against Holland. Maybe something like this. They don't have a ton. Who's their right? Who's likely to start up front for them? Who's likely to start up front for them? Because I feel as though they don't have a ton of pace. I feel like they don't have a ton of pace. Bob, I mean, maybe it's Doku on the left, right? So I'd be sticking Doku here. Holland, you could get away with De Ligt on one of these positions, probably in a wide position in a game like this, probably, right? Like, he's not going to be, you know, killed there. And I think Dorgu actually deals with people pretty well defensively. His pace, you think his pace? I don't know. I feel like De Ligt could handle Bob. But I don't know. They're not like trends. They don't play in behind so much. So I think that's more the point is that they even when they play with pace, they don't play in behind particularly. So they're less transitional than most teams in the league, so you tend to not have to worry so much about the runs in behind and things. Today, this is what I think I would go with. I'm not saying Bob is bad. I'm just saying, yeah. Excuse me. What do you mean the team kind of stinks? I mean, that's the team. That's our team. It's like missing one player. I don't know. I kind of wanted to get Mazraoui in here. I have a selection problem myself, in my opinion, in my feelings on the back three, because I kind of wanted to get Mazraoui in here. I also feel like Shaw had a really good game against Burnley on my rewatch, but I'm never always sure. Like, it could well just be the same, and it could just be Shaw out wide, and we go with the same back three we've been doing. You know what I mean? I hope he doesn't move Bruno up to the 10. He only did it for such a short time in the last game. I'm assuming Mount and Cunha are both not starting, which is why I have Xerxes. Yeah, I don't know. I think Šeško would be good for this game though, because I think he can. Yeah, I think he has set on his back line, but he also picks players based on matchups fairly often, and I do feel like Holland versus, yeah, it's tough, man. Like right now, this is probably his back line. I don't know. I'd probably run this personally. I'm not sure. Yeah, the back three keeping the same chemistry seems okay, even though I'll be honest with you, they have made a few mistakes. They made some mistakes against Burnley. Both De Ligt and Shaw. There was a couple times they made mistakes in that game. But then again, that might have been Dallow's fault too, confusing everybody. If we put Bruno in the 10, then we run this, which isn't the worst idea, because that's been a lot better in bigger games against tougher teams. You get the most out of both of these players playing them together, I think. They cover each other's flaws. Like, this is probably your best team, because you get a sitter behind Ugarte so he can do his thing wreaking havoc. Like, one of the things Fred used to do really well, making the comparison with Ugarte, is in big games, when you let this kind of player who has the legs, the energy to go around and somewhat destroy without having to be the sitter at the same time, they fuck up the plans of the opposition. They do mess with the opposition. And Fred used to wreak havoc on City's midfield every single time we played him. He would just run around destroying their midfield, and they struggled to beat us in large part because of him in those games. We also played City with Ugarte and Casemiro together, I believe, the last time in the derby, and I think we were better than them in that game. So this might be the best team. This might be the best team if we're playing into spaces. But the biggest factor here is we need Bruno to be able to get players in behind. This might be the team to go with. This might be my pick. I think that might be the best team for this position, for where we're at right now. That's what I think. You can feel free to disagree. Tomorrow we're gonna do a vote. Tomorrow we'll do our live. We'll do our vote. We'll actually do the whole pre-match shit. But honestly, this is what I think. Like, yeah, in the Europa League as well, Daniel. You know, that was kind of Fred's job in big games, was to go throw a wrench in what the opposition was doing. Did it in Barcelona, did it in City, did it in a few games. Like, if I had Fred right now, I'd drop him right in there. But I think Ugarte does a lot of the same things off the ball when he has someone sitting behind him. He does a lot better in that role. So this is probably it. This is probably it for me. I don't want to see us go defensive at the right wing back. Like, Mazraoui at the right wing back and defensive at right wing back's been a disaster for us. We have to attack. We don't have that many forwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. We only have 4 forwards on the pitch. Like, that's not that many. That's if you go with this, then you do end up with 7 defenders. If you go with a defender at right wing back, I wouldn't go Xerxes. If I were going, Xerxes would be here. And the reason is we have to get runners into the channels against City. It's their biggest weakness. That's the problem. Like, if you were to go Mazraoui or something, you need runners. Ahmad will run in the channels, and Mbeumo will run in the channels. Like, they're very weak against those kinds of runs. Dorgu, we need to see him making those runs in as well. But this is my team for the game. This is my team for the game. I think this is it. I'm still questioning the back line if I want to get Maguire in, but because he also has the long passing. But yeah, I think this would be my team. In terms of those injuries, guys, it just depends on if Ruben Amorim is being extra safe or not. It's just if he's being extra safe or not. That's all. They're not serious. I think they could be in the team on this weekend. I think they could be in the team this weekend, but it just depends on Ruben and on certain things. And one of the things that I found interesting is that we haven't been releasing any training pictures. Have you guys noticed that? It's Thursday. There's no training pictures. Did I miss them? There's no training pictures. I think we're doing it on purpose. I think they're doing it on purpose. I think we're doing that on purpose because we don't want them to know. We don't want them to know who's ready, who might be there. But yeah, we do have to go all out. I mean, yeah. We have 1 game a week. This is a big game. It shouldn't be that big, but it is a big game. I skipped training. Yeah, we usually always get the videos and pictures by now. We might get some tomorrow, but hiding the Tom Heaton return, yeah. I maybe could reach out to some people to ask, like, if they know of anything that's gone on in training, but, like, I don't know. It's interesting. Too many United YouTube channels give too much info. Yeah. Why? What is this thing where people are saying that Šeško won't start? Why? Like, is there a reason? Is there like some reason I'm not understanding why people are assuming he won't start? I'm not saying he will or won't. I mean, he's not, I'm not saying he will or won't, but like, why? Is there some other reason? Is there some conspiracy that people are spreading? That's my curiosity. You cryptic answer unfinished. Oh yeah, we will, yeah. Because he hasn't started him yet, but he only joined 2 weeks. Because he's only been 2 weeks. It's only been 2 weeks. Like, that's it. Desko joined very late. He only got two weeks to train. Ruben really, really rates training. He really values training. He really values the ability to... No, I know, I understand for you answering. I was asking honestly. Ruben really values training. He really values the time that is spent on the training ground, and he really values what he sees in training. That tends to be how he picks his teams. More often than not, that's what he picks a lot of things. The likely situation is, with Ruben, with anybody, is Occam's razor on this. He's not picking him because, as of yet, in training, he's not the best choice. That's it. And that can just be time, working into the system, working into the way they play. Could be a number of factors in that. He's only been there a few weeks. That's all. If he doesn't pick Lamans, it'll be the same reason. That just in training, he hasn't been able to match up enough with the team yet to be selected. But Ruben really, really rates training. He really values what he sees in training as a part of his selection process. You know, so I'm here to tell you it's not because Ruben doesn't like him. It's not because he preferred someone different. It's not because of anything weird like that. It's simply because maybe he's just not done that well yet. That's the main thing. Just not fit in yet. That's all. So we'll see. We'll see. He did say he wasn't 100% fit. Yeah, and he'll probably be fit now, but either way. All right, guys, I'm going to end it there. It's been a good live. Thank you all today. Tomorrow, I'll be on the Trinity first thing in the morning. We'll do a news show, and then we'll come back a bit later, okay? That's what I've got. So I appreciate you all very much. Thank you all for hanging out with me this afternoon. Make sure to like the video on your way out this evening. Thank you all. Have a good one. We'll be back tomorrow, and then we'll actually be talking about football this weekend, finally, and be ready for the games to kick off. Okay? Have a good one, everyone. See you later. Thank you. Goodbye. Enjoy the rest of your day. See you later. Do 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 do.